Lamar put up a Jackson 5 last night against the BUCS. Is he doing it better right now than anybody in the league? Is he on his way to a third MVP? We discuss Ravens versus BUCS Monday Night Football. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Up next, Jackson 5. Let's talk. The Baltimore Ravens get a big win on Monday Night Football last night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it was a really good game offensively for the Baltimore Ravens, a suspect game defensively for the Baltimore Ravens. But again, we saw elite level play from quarterback Lamar Jackson. We saw solid play at times from the offensive line. We saw Derrick Henry get involved late in that game and make some splash plays. We saw Rashad Bateman come alive, possibly having his best game as a Baltimore Raven. And we saw the tight ends, all three, get involved with some big catches. And so, man, it's really good to see this Baltimore Ravens offense coming alive, developing a level of consistency for 5 weeks straight. And it's not even a situation where they played bad in game one or game two, but you really kind of began to see the full array of talent on display over the last few weeks. And so, man, I want to give a couple of shout outs, man, to get this thing started. I want to give a shout out to Lamar Jackson for upping his game, taking his game to another level. And I think Lamar Jackson has always had this talent. I think that what we're seeing from Lamar Jackson is taking off the full handcuffs that were placed on him from the Greg Roman offense, from where he just had to kind of ride in the side, kind of RPO only, not a lot of dropbacks and surveying and things like that. And we understand that John Harbaugh said last year they were going to keep some elements of the Greg Roman offense, especially the run game, in last season, of course. And I think what you're seeing now in the second year of Todd Monken is now you're seeing the full array of ability of Lamar Jackson. Now that all of the old handcuffs have been taken off, where you're able to see him go to the line of scrimmage, you're able to see him read the defense, make adjustments, slide protection, so on and so forth. And it's really good to see. And that's a lot of the reason why you're seeing the national media kind of jump on board and kind of give Lamar Jackson some praise. And so, man, so shout out, man, to Lamar Jackson for just upping his level, man, staying focused, staying consistent, and staying committed to working on his craft. Shout out to Mark Andrews, who has come alive over the last couple of weeks. Not really a lot of yardage necessarily, but a lot of big catches, timely route running, and displaying of good hands. Shout out to Rashad Bateman from the wide receiver room, a guy who has been building over the last few weeks. I've been hard on Rashad Bateman, and I'll still be hard on him, right? I will. I'm not going to back off anything that I've said. I'm not going to take back anything that I've said about Rashad Bateman. But I think that he is developing into a solid second or even a third option, depending on how a play is called and depending on how the play unfolds. And so glad to see him and Lamar Jackson are developing a chemistry. Really excited to see him step up in Zay Flowers' absence, I guess is what you could call it, because Zay, from what I remember, just had one catch and one target. He got injured early in that game, and so we don't know the extent, or at least I don't know the extent, because I haven't checked out anybody else's reporting on that as of the record of this video. Shout out to the other two tight ends, man, Kolar and Isaiah Likely, making catches when they're targeted. Being a chain mover, being consistent, doing what they needed to do in the blocking aspect of things. Shout out to Ronnie Stanley, man, who is playing the best ball he's played in 4 seasons. I've been really hard on Ronnie Stanley, and I still will be, right? Excuse me. I'm still not in the mindset of giving him a big contract next year or anything like that. But I think that him being healthy finally, I think it's a 100% health at this point. He's really showing his ability, and he's found his form once again. Shout out to Roger Rosengarten for recovering after giving up some pressures early, and getting his quarterback hit, pretty significantly. He recovered and played some good ball down that stretch. And so Shout out, man, to the offense performance. Shout out to Derrick Henry, man, for getting involved in this game late. And when I say it that way, I'm not saying he wasn't involved in this game. It's just those late 2 carries, the 81-yarder and the 39-yarder. Basically, if you really just do that math, that's 130 yards on those 2 plays, which is really what boosted his numbers. He hadn't done a whole lot in that game, and I didn't expect him to. In fact, I thought that Tampa would be up for the task, and they were until the until the final quarter, where he broke some plays. And again, that just speaks to Lamar Jackson being up for the task of carrying the offense, putting the ball where it needs to be, moving the pocket when he needs to, so on and so forth, man. So shout out, man, to the offense for putting up another 41-point game, right? When I jump to the defense side of the ball, I want to give a shout out to Marlon Humphrey. You guys know, and this is why I'll say what I will say what I'm saying when I'm critiquing or criticizing or analyzing a player and their performance. But I'll also take a step back and give them praise when they're due. So shout out to Marlon Humphrey, man. 2 game-changing interceptions. Shout out to Kyle Hamilton for bringing the wood all night long. Big hit after big hit. Let me see. I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Odafe and Cal Van Noy for coming up with some sacks later in that game, and Roquan having 15 plus tackles last night. So man, a few takeaways. I got 3 main takeaways from this game. The first takeaway is I still think that the Baltimore Ravens need to kind of go hurry up a little more in the first half. To kind of put a little more pressure on the defense. They're doing well, but sometimes, as you saw last night, we kind of get into a little bit of a slump, and so sometimes going hurry up can kind of break up that lull, that slump, and help us find a little bit of rhythm. So, so I do think that that's going to be a component that maybe we'll see in the second half of the season. So that's one takeaway. I think they need to speed it up a little more. A second takeaway is that the offensive line, I think because they have been able to field all 5 of the same guys the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think that's where you're seeing that consistency in the blocking for sure. And so shout out to the offensive line for gelling and doing their own. I want to specifically point out Daniel Falele, man, who I was a proponent of switching him out for being Cleveland, not because I didn't believe in Daniel Falele, but I didn't think a guy that big was going to be effective playing in the interior, because typically they're not. But shout out, man, for him keeping his head down and just grinding it out and making it work at the right guard position. I want to specifically also shout out Patrick McCarry, as I'm thinking about it, man, for kind of stepping into that left guard position and really never giving it back to Voorhees. Another major takeaway from this game is that the Baltimore Ravens are now consistently being able to utilize more of their talent. It's not a situation where the Baltimore Ravens made a lot of big additions offensively this offseason. We understand that the major addition they made was to bring in Derrick Henry. But as far as their talent at wide receiver, as far as their talent at tight end, they're now able to utilize all of those players. And I think that has also made Lamar Jackson's game more well-rounded. It's never been a situation where he didn't have an ability to do what we're seeing him do. It's that the offense was so limited under Greg Roman, which you've heard me talk about multiple times, that it was just Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews and a running game. And then last year, again, I think I have 2 more takeaways from this game. I think one of the major takeaways from last night's win in Tampa Bay was that the Baltimore Ravens are now consistently using a lot more of their talent base. I think last night when I looked at the box score, I think Lamar Jackson, I think he hit 7 different players with 1 pass or more throughout the course of the game. You guys remember those days under Greg Roman, and then even a lot last year until Mark Andrews went down. It was Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews in the pass game, and then a running game. But I think that what we're seeing now is that the Baltimore Ravens aren't just a Mark Andrews centric passing offense. Everybody's able to eat from the same table. It could be Zay one game. Last night, it was Rashad Bateman. Sometimes it has been Isaiah Likely. And then as of late, it has been Mark Andrews who's been coming up with big plays. You got to remember, Mark Andrews was not even a factor over the first 2 or 3 weeks of this season. And then as of the last couple of games, he's been coming up with big time plays. And I think that's going to serve us well, as it does many teams where they're able to have a whole host of guys who can contribute. All right. And so I think that the Baltimore Ravens must continue to do that, because I think you're going to see more teams play us defensively like Tampa tried to do last night. Tampa tried to play us straight up. They didn't start out with a whole lot of 8 and 9 in the box, but they did bring a lot of blitzing. And so I think that spreading out the distribution of passes has allowed us to handle the blitz a lot better, to handle 8 and 9 men in the box a lot better. You see, in the Mark Andrews centric offense, it was if Mark Andrews didn't get open and make a play, then we didn't know who was going to make a play. But now they can key on Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely will make a catch. They can key on Isaiah Likely, Kolar can make a catch. They can double up Zay, and Bateman is now making catches. And so I think that's going to serve us well going down the stretch. Now what we need is health, which is my last takeaway. Last night, I think that we had one major injury, and that was Marlon Humphrey. And there was another guy. Hold on, let me think. There was another guy who went out. Zay. Yeah. Marlon Humphrey and Zay both suffered some injury last night. And I think personally, we need just to not even prepare them to play on Sunday. Not that we're so much better than Cleveland. Not that we are better without those guys. We certainly are not. But I think that this is the type of season where you have one guy making most of the game-changing plays on defense, and that has been Marlon Humphrey. And then you have your number one, sometimes the number two, depending on who the ball is going to, receiver offensively. And after they suffered that injury last night, he wasn't really involved in the game. He had 1 catch and 1 target, if I remember correctly, from looking at the box score. And so I think that you just go ahead and prepare them for week number 9, which I think is against Denver. And, you know, Denver is a tough-minded defense, and they play a tough and rugged style. So I think leaving Zay out this week, again, not because we're better without him, but I think give him the 2 weeks to get right. I think we can beat Cleveland without Zay and Humphrey, especially since Cleveland seems to be hitting a little bit of the reset button on this season. And so I think Marlon Humphrey is too valuable at this point to kind of try to push him back quickly to get ready to play next week. And I think Zay is too important to this offense to try to push him back before he's ready. We're close to being over the midway point. We're 5-2, and I think we can go to Cleveland with a solid game plan. It's going to be a tough game, but I think we can go there and still get a win without those 2 guys and giving them ample time to get healed up. And so that's my thoughts. Those are my takeaways. Those are my shout outs. Let me know who you guys would shout out. Matter of fact, do me a favor, drop in the comment section who you believe the unsung hero was from this game. I don't know one right off, but I'm sure there is someone. So listen, I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.